What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the BTR Garage. My name is Justin. It's almost time for the first track day in the GR86. We've got some basic track prep that we're gonna do to the car before we head out. I'm gonna show you what I've got, and then we're gonna get the car all set up and ready to go. So the supplies that I have for my GR86 for the first track day, a couple of these things are items that I would recommend for anybody getting on the track for the first time. In particular, I'm talking about the brake pads. These are specifically made for the track. These are actually Hawk DTC60 brake pads, both front and rear. Your OEM pads, they're gonna fade, they're gonna overheat, and they're just not gonna be safe or last on a typical track day, whether it's a time attack or an HPDE or just an open lapping day. You really wanna have a good set of brake pads. To complement that, the other thing is the brake fluid. So I've got Type 200 by ATE. This is a fluid I've used on pretty much all of my race cars, my time attack BMW, my old Subaru BRZ, as well as my old FRS, and even cars before that, my Miatas and other race cars that I have had. This is good fluid, it's inexpensive, it's plentiful, and it gets the job done. So those two things I would highly recommend before ever doing any kind of track day. And you can pick your own pads if you like. I got the DTC60s just because this is what I have used on my BRZ in the past. With that said, I will be swapping out these pads to a Counterspace Garage CSG spec set of pads in the near future. To make changing the brake fluid easy, because we do have to flush out all of the OEM fluid that is in the brake system, I've got a Schwaben brake bleeder as well as a Schwaben catch can bottle, and then just your everyday little suction plunger, whatever the heck these things are called, to suck the brake fluid out of the master cylinder in the car. Now I went a little bit above and beyond with the track day prep. This is SPC camber bolts. So what these will do is give us a little bit of extra negative camber on the front of the car just to help out with tire wear, a little bit of extra turn in and grip on the car as well. So with this stuff here, we're gonna install the brake pads. We're gonna drain and flush out all of the brake fluid from all of the calipers. And then we're gonna install our camber bolts or our crash bolts as well for that camber. So we'll go ahead and get started installing the brake pads first, and I'm really not going to go into super detail. As you can see, I've got the video sped up here, but the installation is literally exactly the same as the previous generation cars, and I have some videos out there which I'll link in the description or maybe in some of the video cards up in the corner that show exactly how to do this, as well as bleeding the brakes and some of the other things we're doing here. But the overall high-level process on these cars is super easy. As you can see, I use the approach where you remove the top caliper bolt and then remove the retaining bolt for the brake line itself. You can also just remove the lower bolt on the caliper and then swing the caliper up and pull the brake pads out. You can do it either way. I just like to do it by taking the two bolts out. We're moving on to getting the SPC camber bolts installed. Obviously we're removing the factory bolts first, and we're actually going to take the bolt from the bottom and put that into the top hole, because the bottom bolt from the factory is a little bit thinner than the top bolt, so we can get a little bit of extra play in the top, or adjustment rather. You can see we're taking out that thick bolt from the top and we're putting in the thinner bolt into the top that came out of the bottom originally. So we've got the thin bolt on top, we've got the SPC bolt on the bottom, and what we're doing is we're pushing on the top of the disc rotor there to get that portion of the suspension pushed all the way in, and then we tightened up that top bolt a little bit, and then we're aligning the SPC bolt in the proper orientation and then cranking it down nice and tight. And there's a specific torque setting you use for that. I believe it's 92 foot-pounds. Check the SPC manual, or I'll probably have it right in the text. Moving to the back, we're doing the brake pads again here. Again, I'm taking off the bolt that holds the little retaining clip for the brake line itself. Then we're going to move to the top bolt on the caliper, which allows us to pull that caliper backwards and quickly swap out the pads, taking out the old ones, popping in the new ones. Again, super easy job, just like it was on the old cars. And you know, without videotaping, it literally just takes a couple minutes to get this done and then get everything put back together and bolted back up. Moving to the brake fluid master cylinder. So first thing we're going to do here is try to siphon out as much of the brake fluid that we can from the master cylinder reservoir using our turkey baster. So you can get most of it out of there. You can't get the turkey baster all the way into the bottom of the reservoir, so that's fine. Just get out as much as you can, and then once we have that removed, we're going to pour in our new fluid and put that as high as we can get it, because we're going to be pumping a lot of it out of there. I actually, before I hook up the pressure bleeder, I pump out about a full reservoir's worth of fluid just by using the brake pedal, and then I fill it back up. Obviously you don't want to suck in air when you're doing that, but then I hook up the brake bleeder, pump it up with air pressure so that it's pressurizing the system. So naturally, when you loosen up the brake bleed on the caliper, the fluid is immediately going to start coming out. Normally when I do this, I pump quite a lot of fluid through the system, if I'm doing a full brake bleed, that is. So I probably went through about a can full of brake fluid of that ATE Type 200, and you can see we're finishing off the front. And when I'm doing the flush process, it doesn't really matter which caliper you go to. I'm going to flush out all of the calipers quite a lot just by flushing out the old fluid, and then eventually I'll go back for a final bleed and start with the rear passenger, the rear driver, and then go to the passenger front and then the driver front to do the final bleed. So we've depressurized the brake bleeder, let all the air out of there, and then we've unhooked it from the master cylinder reservoir. We're going to clean that up, put the little top piece in, the little clear plastic part, whatever the heck it's called, and then we're going to top off our fluid again, make sure it's at the max level before buttoning it up and putting our cap back on the reservoir. Again, like I mentioned, I'll put some links down in the description that shows how to do most of these processes in more detail as I did them on my 2017 BRZ. They again are pretty much exactly the same on this car from a process perspective. So there we go, we have the GR86 well prepared for the first track day. All new brake fluid, capable of handling the high temperatures at the track. Track appropriate brake pads. We got the camber bolts for a little extra camber in the front of the car. And we should be set for a fun and safe track day. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope the video was helpful. So stay tuned, we'll also have that track video coming up real soon. First ever track day in the GR86. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, like always, please leave them down below. I would love to hear from you. Stay safe out there. I am checking out, and we'll talk to you all next time.